Swimbaits, drop shots. When I catch those bass, they go chop chop. L to the T to the B. L to the T to the B.
Hey, what's up guys? Nick the Informative Fisherman here on behalf of Lucky Tackle Box today, and we're gonna be breaking down Biwaa's TailGunR Swimbait. This thing's an absolute beauty and a heck of a stud in the wintertime. Let's break her down. So when it comes to this bait, you have to ask, what makes it unique? When you normally look at a swim bait, the profile is vertical like that. It stands up, the tail's in the back. But when you look at the Biwaa TailGunR, it's wider than it is as tall. So what does this do? It shows the fish completely something different. Look how long that tail is right there. And look at the size of that big old paddle tail on the back. It's absolutely huge. Now, with the bait that's wider than it is taller, you gotta ask yourself, well, how come it doesn't turn over? Biwaa's designed it to have a little keel on there. So what does this match? Well, you can make it match pretty much any bait fish out there, but what I like to make it match is gobies. When do I find that this bait works exceptionally well? When that water's below 55 degrees and the bait fish chase is kind of backing off and those fish are hunkering down and they start feeding on gobies and crawfish. And this is absolutely incredible presentation to do that. I'm using the white here as an example. I believe you guys got the shad ones. I'm not sure what color you got. White always reflective. It just looks like a bait fish. All year round, white looks like a bait fish. I also have the green pumpkin, which looks exactly like a goby, or a shad pattern. If you find it in the fall when they're chasing bait, it can work substantially well. So what makes this bait excel? That longer, skinnier, wider body with this tail. This thing absolutely kicks at slow speed. So I like to use this when I like to drag the bottom, when I'm dragging. So I'm gonna show you a couple different rigs that I hook this up on to hopefully get you guys more fish in the boat. So when I'm fishing this bait, when the water's in the 40s, I like to use a really light jig head, like 1/4 ounce. So I'll push the 1/2 ounce a lot of the time, and this happens to be an 1/8 ounce with a little 1/0 hook. This is on the smaller side, and I'm choosing to throw that on spinning tackle today. The reason for this is I don't want the bait to dredge in the bottom. I basically want it to just levitate there and slowly kick across the bottom. I'm gonna throw that anywhere from 6 to 10 pound fluorocarbon on these lighter jig heads, just like that with that exposed hook. If there's no grass around, slightly rocky bottom or boulders, that exposed hook has a much higher hookup ratio and you can get away with a lot. Another way I like to rig this bait when I'm fishing in heavy grass or around timber, I like a screw lock swim bait keel hook. And a keel is just the weight on the bottom, just like that little tail I was talking to you about. And I'm going to Texas rig this bait. So I have it with that little screw lock. I've screwed it into the nose of the bait, and then I'm gonna slide that hook up inside the bait, pull it back like so. Once again, if I'm fishing in super heavy timber, I'll put that hook in the middle of that plastic's body. But if I'm fishing around snags here and there, but a lot of open water, I'm going to expose that hook and basically just have it on the back. Now this can come through a lot more weedless. It can come through branches, it can come through sharper rocks, and it's gonna come through there real nice and easy. When that fish comes and gets it and bites down, that expose hook, it's gonna slide right down that body just like that. If I'm fishing really heavy weed, I don't want it exposed, I'm gonna bury that hook point back in and just go with a normal Texas rig. Therefore the branches and grass can come right over the top of that bait like so. When I'm fishing that bait Texas rig with a keel hook on there, the keel weight system like that, little swim bait hook, I like to throw it on bait casting gear in a longer rod. It's a swim bait. I'm making far cast and I'm trying to cover a lot of water. This is not a bait where I'm gonna spend time in one little spot shaking it. I'm gonna cast that out there and slow roll it across the bottom. I like to fish that on anywhere from 10 to 17 pound fluorocarbon. And why fluorocarbon, you might ask? It's extremely low stretch, the line's dense, and it sinks to where if I'm bumping rocks, if I'm in grass, I'm going to feel it on that rod. I prefer a long rod, anything from 7.6 to a 7.11, as long as you can get away with it. And I like a moderate fast taper. Moderate would be bending right in the middle, which give you a ton of cush, like a real limber crankbait rod, but a moderate fast is just up from there to where I have a lot of cushion on this rod. And the reason why I like that with a swim bait, I like them to swim up and eat it. I tell people a lot of the time, when you feel that first initial bump, boom, on when you're pulling a swim bait, don't set the hook. Reel a little bit faster, because what happens is the fish will oftentimes come up and peck. And if you reel faster, it'll feel like a bait's just trying to get away from them, trying to swim out of their mouth. But when you jerk it, it feels unnatural. But if you just start to reel faster, a lot of the time they'll inhale it at that point. The rod will start to load up. So I like a little bit of give in that rod, and then I lean on them for that hook set at that point. So that little exposed hook, I like that spinning rod on a jig head. You can also put these things on like football jigs and throw it on the same bait casting setup. Any type of exposed jig head hook. If I'm fishing heavy, if I'm fishing closer to a 1/2 ounce and up, I'm gonna fish it on bait casting gear. If I'm fishing it 1/4 ounce and down, I'm gonna throw it on spinning gear. I can make a longer cast, and I'm usually throwing a lighter line when I'm throwing a lighter setup with a lighter wire hook. So that spinning rod kind of works to the benefit. It's the right tool for the job. And when I'm going heavy, that bait caster becomes the right tool for the job for heavier horsing and ripping those fish out of heavy cover. So when do you fish a little plastic swim bait? Year round. These are some of the most versatile baits you can use. Whether you have a Texas rig and fishing around in heavy cover, grass lines, around boat docks, bouncing off of boulders on the bottom, you can fish that little exposed jig head. The key is when to use it. And the perks are you can use it year round, just like I said, but how do you do it? When does it excel? The pre-spawn swim baits excel. Bass are willing to chase everything. That's that 52 to 58 degree water temperature. The fall, once that water temperature is down around 62, back to 55 degrees, you're gonna get a ton of them eating bait fish like this. That's when they're willingly active to chase. Overcast weather in the middle of the summertime, early in the morning, later in the evening when the barometer's lower, they're gonna chase down a moving bait. Now here's the perks about a Texas rig bait. I'm gonna make a cast out here, and there's some rocks along the bottom. I'm gonna let this thing fall all the way to the bottom. I don't wanna bring it through the middle of the water column. It doesn't stop and sit there. It doesn't change directions. Rarely ever will a bass trigger on something in the middle of the water column unless it changes directions or stops and sits there like a jerk bait or a glide bait that's moving out side to side to where they can pin it when it makes that directional change. Now that I'm certain it's on the bottom, I'm gonna hop it up a little bit, and I'm gonna slow roll it right along the bottom so it's tracing every piece of structure and cover down there. I'm right in the bass's face. The summertime, the wintertime, they're gonna be right down there along that bottom, and you're gonna get in front of them, and you're gonna catch some of the biggest bass you have ever caught on a hand-poured swim bait, just like that. Another really unique thing about this swim bait is it has a lot of rocking in the body from the head back. The heavier the kill hook you get, the less rocking it's gonna have. But the lighter you get, or a little ball head with that exposed hook, this bait is going to rock a lot at slow speeds. What does that do? It gives your bait more life. The more movement you have at slower speeds, the colder the water, the more often it's going to trigger that fish into eating it. Guys, I'm Nick the Informative Fisherman, and that's the Biwaa TailGunR. Hopefully you picked up some extra knowledge from this video and get out and abuse some bass with this bad boy. We'll see you next time, and thanks for subscribing to Lucky Tackle Box.